In the shadowy corridors of Raven's Hollow Palace, where whispered secrets echo louder than royal proclamations, a single photograph would shatter the foundations of the monarchy forever. For 3 years, Princess Catherine had been absent from court life, recovering from a scandal that nearly destroyed her reputation. But now she's back, and she carries with her evidence that will expose the most shocking betrayal in royal history. What happens when the future queen discovers that her greatest enemy isn't a tabloid journalist or political rival, but someone who sits at the very heart of the royal family? Someone who has been systematically destroying everything Catherine holds dear, all while wearing a crown and a smile? The Game of Thrones is about to begin, and this time, Catherine isn't playing defense. She's playing for keeps, and the stakes have never been higher. In a world where loyalty can be bought, trust is a luxury, and revenge is a dish best served with royal protocol, one woman's quest for justice will either restore her rightful place or bring down the entire monarchy. Welcome to a tale where every curtsy conceals a dagger, every smile masks a scheme, and every royal wave might be the last. This is the story of how a princess became a queen, not through birthright, but through the most dangerous game of all, the game of survival, in a palace built on lies. The morning mist clung to the ancient stones of Raven's Hollow Palace like secrets refusing to be revealed. Princess Catherine Eleanor Montclair stood at the wrought-iron gates she hadn't passed through in 3 long years, her emerald eyes scanning the familiar towers that had once been her prison and paradise alike. The black sedan that had brought her from her countryside exile disappeared into the London traffic, leaving her alone with 2 leather suitcases and a heart full of carefully planned vengeance. She had been 26 when the scandal broke. Now, at 29, Catherine carried herself with the poise of a woman who had learned that survival required more than royal blood and pretty smiles. The girl who had fled in disgrace was gone, replaced by someone who understood that in the game of royal politics, innocence was not just naive, it was dangerous. The palace gates opened with their familiar creak, and Catherine's heels clicked against the cobblestones as she made her way toward the main entrance. She had timed her arrival perfectly. It was Tuesday morning, which meant Queen Cordelia would be in her private study reviewing state papers. King Edmund would be meeting with his advisors, and most importantly, Queen Mother Camilla, the woman Catherine now knew had orchestrated her downfall, would be hosting her weekly charity breakfast in the East Wing. As Catherine approached the grand entrance, she spotted a familiar figure waiting for her. Thomas Blackwood, her former personal security guard, stood at attention near the marble steps. At 35, Thomas was a man who had spent his entire adult life protecting the royal family. But 3 years ago, he had been transferred away from Catherine's detail under mysterious circumstances. Now, seeing him there, Catherine felt the first piece of her carefully laid plan clicking into place. "Your Royal Highness," Thomas said with a slight bow, his voice betraying none of the emotion that flickered in his dark eyes. "Thomas," Catherine replied, her voice steady but warm. "I wasn't expecting to see you here. I requested to be assigned to your security detail again," he said quietly, glancing around to ensure they weren't overheard. "There are things you need to know. Things that happened while you were away." Catherine's pulse quickened, but she maintained her composure. "Walk with me." They entered the palace through the main hall, where crystal chandeliers cast rainbow patterns across marble floors that had been polished to mirror perfection. The familiar scent of roses and lemon polish filled Catherine's nostrils, bringing back memories both sweet and bitter. Servants bowed as she passed, some with genuine warmth, others with the carefully neutral expressions of those who had chosen sides long ago. As they walked through the portrait gallery, past paintings of monarchs dating back centuries, Thomas spoke in low tones. "The morning you left, I was ordered to clean out your private office. I was supposed to destroy everything, but—" He paused, reaching into his jacket. "I kept this." He handed Catherine a small manila envelope. Inside was a photograph that made her blood run cold. It showed Queen Mother Camilla in deep conversation with Marcus Rothwell, the tabloid editor who had published the doctored photographs that destroyed Catherine's reputation. The timestamp on the photo showed it had been taken 2 days before the scandal broke. "Where did you get this?" Catherine whispered. "I've been investigating for 3 years," Thomas replied. "There's more, much more. Camilla didn't just leak information to destroy you. She's been systematically undermining anyone who poses a threat to her influence over King Edmund." They had reached Catherine's old wing of the palace, where dust covers draped the furniture, like ghosts of her former life. Thomas checked the hallway before continuing. "After you left, Princess Isabella was next. Camilla convinced the king that Isabella was too outspoken about environmental issues, that she was embarrassing the monarchy. Isabella's funding for her conservation projects was cut, and she was sent to represent the crown in remote diplomatic missions. She's barely been home in 2 years. Catherine's hands trembled as she processed this information. Isabella, her closest friend and ally, had been neutralized just as efficiently as Catherine herself had been. "And Prince Marcus?" Catherine asked, referring to the king's youngest son from his first marriage. Thomas's expression darkened. Camilla arranged for him to be photographed at that gambling establishment. The photos were real, but Marcus was there trying to help a friend with a gambling addiction. Camilla's people made sure the context never came out. He's been in rehabilitation for addiction he doesn't actually have, just to keep him away from court. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, revealing a pattern of manipulation that went far deeper than Catherine had imagined. Camilla had spent the last 5 years methodically removing anyone who could challenge her position as the power behind the throne. "But why?" Catherine asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "To succession," Thomas replied grimly. "King Edmund is 72 and in declining health. When he dies, Queen Cordelia will become regent until Crown Prince William comes of age. But if something were to happen to William, or if he were to abdicate, the line of succession becomes complicated." Catherine understood immediately. With Catherine, Isabella, and Marcus removed from the picture, Camilla's own son from her first marriage, Prince Richard, who had been legitimized when she married the king, would be much closer to the throne. "There's something else," Thomas continued, producing another envelope. "Financial records. Camilla has been funneling money from various royal charities into offshore accounts. She's been preparing for something big." As Catherine examined the documents, footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Thomas quickly motioned for her to hide behind a large armoire as 2 voices approached. One she recognized as Camilla's private secretary, the other belonging to Marcus Rothwell himself. "The princess's return changes nothing," Rothwell was saying. "The public still believes she's unstable. One more scandal, and she'll be finished permanently." "Camilla wants it handled delicately this time," the secretary replied. "No more tabloid exposés. Something more permanent in terms of damage to her reputation." "What did she have in mind?" "Mental health concerns. A very public breakdown. Perhaps during the upcoming state dinner with the French delegation. Such a shame when the pressure of royal life becomes too much for someone so fragile." Catherine's blood ran cold as she realized they were planning to stage her mental collapse in front of international dignitaries. It would be career suicide, ensuring she could never return to public life. The voices faded as the men moved past, but their words had given Catherine all the motivation she needed. This wasn't just about restoring her own reputation anymore. This was about stopping a woman who would destroy anyone standing between her and ultimate power. That evening, Catherine sat in her restored private chambers, surrounded by the evidence Thomas had gathered over 3 years of careful investigation. Bank records, photographs, recorded conversations, and testimonies from palace staff who had been too frightened to speak out before. It was enough to expose Camilla's schemes, but Catherine knew she had to be strategic about how she used it. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Welcome home, dear. Looking forward to our reunion." Catherine smiled grimly as she typed a reply. "The pleasure will be all mine." The next morning, Catherine made her first public appearance at the weekly royal breakfast, walking into the East Wing dining room where Camilla held court with various charity leaders and society figures. The room fell silent as Catherine entered, her emerald silk dress and perfectly styled hair commanding attention. "Catherine, darling," Camilla said, rising from her seat with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "What a lovely surprise. I didn't know you were back at the palace. I wanted to surprise everyone," Catherine replied sweetly, accepting a kiss on both cheeks from the woman who had destroyed her life. "I hope you don't mind me joining your little gathering." "Of course not, dear. We were just discussing the upcoming state dinner. Such an important event for the monarchy." Catherine took a seat across from Camilla, noting how the other woman's fingers drummed nervously against her teacup. "Yes, I'm particularly looking forward to it. I have some very interesting things to share with our international guests." For just a moment, Camilla's mask slipped, and Catherine caught a glimpse of the calculating mind beneath the grandmotherly facade. "How wonderful," Camilla said carefully. "I'm sure everyone will be fascinated to hear what you've been up to during your sabbatical." "Oh, I've been very productive," Catherine replied, sipping her tea with deliberate calm. "Learning new things, meeting interesting people, gathering fascinating information about palace life. You might say I've developed quite a passion for investigative research." The message was clear, and Catherine had the satisfaction of seeing Camilla's composure crack slightly. The game had officially begun, and this time, Catherine wasn't playing by anyone's rules but her own. As the breakfast continued, Catherine made mental notes of everyone present. These people would be her witnesses when the time came to reveal the truth. She had learned patience during her exile, and she would need every ounce of it now. The war for the soul of the monarchy was about to begin, and Catherine intended to win. The state dinner was still 5 days away when Catherine received an unexpected visitor. Princess Isabella knocked on her chamber door at precisely 9 in the evening, her usually immaculate appearance disheveled from what appeared to be a rushed journey.
"This state is over well."
Catherine hadn't seen her dearest friend in over 2 years, and the reunion was both joyful and heartbreaking. "They told me you were back," Isabella said, embracing Catherine tightly. "I flew in from Madagascar as soon as I heard. Catherine, we need to talk." Isabella's dark hair was shorter now, practical for her diplomatic missions, and there was a weariness in her brown eyes that hadn't been there before. At 28, she should have been in her prime, representing the modern face of the monarchy. Instead, she looked like a woman who had been fighting a losing battle. "I know what Camilla did to you," Catherine said without preamble. "Thomas showed me the evidence." Isabella's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank God someone finally believes me. Do you know what it's been like, watching her systematically destroy everything we've worked for, while everyone just accepts her word as law?" They settled into Catherine's private sitting room, where Thomas had positioned additional security measures to ensure their conversation remained private. Isabella pulled out a tablet and began showing Catherine photographs and documents she had collected during her forced diplomatic exile. "Look at this," Isabella said, swiping to show financial records. "While I've been stuck representing the Crown at climate summits and trade negotiations, Camilla has been redirecting funds from my environmental foundation. £20 million, Catherine. 20 million that was supposed to go to rainforest conservation has disappeared into shell companies." Catherine studied the documents, her anger building with each page. "She's not just eliminating threats, she's stealing from the causes we care about." "It gets worse," Isabella continued. "I started investigating after the third time my project funding was mysteriously cut. Camilla has been using royal connections to broker deals with companies that are actively destroying the environments I'm supposed to be protecting. She's playing both sides, taking money from corporations while publicly supporting conservation." The scope of Camilla's corruption was staggering. Catherine had thought the woman was merely power-hungry, but this revealed someone who was systematically looting the monarchy from within. "What about Marcus?" Catherine asked. "Have you been in touch with him?" Isabella's expression darkened. "I tried to visit him at the rehabilitation facility last month. They wouldn't let me see him. Said he was in a delicate phase of his recovery. But I spoke to one of the nurses off the record. Catherine, he's not addicted to gambling. He's not addicted to anything. They're keeping him medicated and isolated." The implications hit Catherine like a physical blow. "She's having him drugged?" The nurse said he keeps insisting he's not an addict, that he was set up. The doctors dismiss it as denial, but what if he's telling the truth? What if Camilla arranged for him to be institutionalized to keep him quiet? Catherine's mind raced through the possibilities. If Marcus was being held against his will under the guise of medical treatment, it would be nearly impossible to prove without solid evidence. And if anyone tried to investigate, Camilla could easily dismiss it as interfering with his recovery. "We need to get him out of there," Catherine said. "I've been trying for months, but Camilla has medical power of attorney since she convinced the king that Marcus was too unstable to make his own decisions. We need something concrete to prove she's been manipulating everything." That night, Catherine and Isabella worked until dawn, comparing their evidence and building a comprehensive picture of Camilla's conspiracy. By morning, they had identified at least 12 separate schemes, ranging from financial fraud to character assassination to possible illegal detention. The next day brought an unexpected development. Catherine was reviewing documents in her study when Thomas appeared with a young woman she didn't recognize. The girl couldn't have been more than 22, with nervous energy and the kind of watchful eyes that spoke of someone who had seen too much.
"Your Highness," Thomas said formally, "this is Sophie Chen, formerly of Queen Mother Camilla's household staff."
"She has information you need to hear." Sophie curtsied awkwardly before speaking in a rushed whisper.
"Your Highness, I worked as a personal assistant to Queen Mother Camilla for 18 months.
I kept records of everything because some of the things she asked me to do didn't feel right. She produced a small recording device. I recorded conversations when I could. I know it wasn't proper, but I was scared. She made me help with things that seemed wrong." Catherine gestured for Sophie to sit, noting how the young woman's hand shook as she handled the recorder. "What kind of things?" She had me create fake social media accounts to spread rumors about you before the scandal broke. She gave me specific details to post about your supposed behavior, things that weren't true but seemed believable. When the photographer released those edited pictures, I was supposed to coordinate with other fake accounts to make the story trend on social media. The revelation that Camilla had orchestrated a comprehensive social media campaign against her added another layer to Catherine's understanding of the plot. This hadn't been an opportunistic leak. It had been a carefully planned demolition. What else? Catherine asked gently, seeing that Sophie had more to share. Prince Marcus, Sophie whispered. The night he was photographed at that gambling establishment, Queen Mother Camilla sent me to deliver an envelope to him at his apartment. She said it was urgent royal correspondence, but I listened at the door after I knocked. Sophie's voice grew even quieter. The envelope contained photographs of his friend Jeremy, the one with the gambling problem. But they weren't normal photographs. They showed Jeremy in compromising positions with other men. Queen Mother Camilla had someone threaten to release them unless Prince Marcus went to the gambling establishment that night. Catherine felt sick. Camilla had blackmailed Marcus into the very situation that destroyed his reputation. Jeremy was being threatened too, Sophie continued. If Prince Marcus didn't show up, they would have ruined Jeremy's marriage and career. Prince Marcus went to protect his friend, not to gamble. Thomas and Catherine exchanged glances. This was the evidence they needed to prove Marcus had been set up, but it also revealed the depths of Camilla's willingness to destroy innocent people to achieve her goals. There's more, Sophie said, producing a folder. Financial records, meeting schedules, even transcripts of phone calls where she discussed removing obstacles to her son Richard's position in the line of succession. As Catherine reviewed Sophie's evidence, she realized they now had enough material to expose Camilla completely. But she also knew that revealing it prematurely could be dangerous, not just for her, but for everyone involved. Sophie, Catherine said carefully, where have you been since you left Camilla's employment? I've been hiding, Sophie admitted. I tried to get a job with another royal household, but every application was mysteriously rejected. I think she's been blacklisting me. I've been working in a coffee shop and living in a tiny flat, too scared to come forward until I heard you were back. Catherine made a decision that would change everything. Sophie, I want to offer you a position in my household. You'll be safe here, and we're going to make sure justice is served. The rest of the day was spent planning their strategy. They had evidence of financial fraud, conspiracy, blackmail, and possibly illegal detention. But they also knew that Camilla had powerful allies, and that any move against her would have to be perfectly executed. That evening, Catherine received a visit that confirmed her suspicions about the urgency of the situation. Dr. Harrison Webb, the royal physician, knocked on her door, looking deeply troubled. Your Highness, he said after ensuring they were alone, I need to discuss your medical records with you. Catherine frowned. Is something wrong? Someone has been requesting access to your psychological evaluation files from 3 years ago. They want to update them, claiming you've shown signs of instability since your return. Catherine's blood ran cold. Who requested this? The order came through Queen Mother Camilla's office. They want me to recommend a comprehensive psychological evaluation before the state dinner. The implication is that if you're found to be unstable, you would be removed from the line of succession for your own well-being. This was exactly what Catherine had overheard Rothwell and Camilla's secretary discussing. They were moving to have her declared mentally incompetent, which would not only remove her from public life, but also discredit any accusations she might make against Camilla. Dr. Webb, Catherine said carefully, what do you know about Prince Marcus's medical treatment? The doctor's expression grew even more troubled. I've had concerns about his case for months. The symptoms described in his files don't match anything I observed when I treated him for minor injuries in the past, but I was told his addiction specialist was handling his care. Would you be willing to examine him independently if we could arrange it?
Doctor.
Webb nodded slowly. If there's any chance that a member of the royal family is receiving inappropriate medical care, it's my duty to investigate. As the doctor left, Catherine realized that Camilla was accelerating her timeline. The state dinner was now just 3 days away, and it was clear that Camilla planned to make her move there. But Catherine had learned something crucial during her exile. Sometimes the best defense was an overwhelming offense. She called Isabella and Thomas to her chambers for an emergency meeting. When they arrived, Catherine's expression was grim but determined. Camilla is planning to have me declared mentally incompetent at the state dinner, she announced. We can't wait any longer. It's time to reveal everything. But the risks, Isabella began. The risks of waiting are greater. Catherine interrupted. If she succeeds in having me removed from the succession, who's going to stop her from doing the same thing to you? Or to William when he comes of age? Thomas nodded grimly. She's right. We have one chance to expose this before she destroys all of us. Catherine stood and walked to the window, looking out at the palace grounds where she had played as a child, where she had learned what it meant to serve the crown and the people. Everything she had ever believed in was at stake. Tomorrow morning, she said, turning back to her allies, we go to war. Dawn broke over Ravenshollow's palace like a declaration of war. Catherine had not slept, instead spending the night organizing evidence into a presentation that would either restore her rightful place in the monarchy or destroy her forever. The state dinner was tomorrow, and she knew this was her only chance to act before Camilla's plan to discredit her was set in motion. At 7 in the morning, Catherine, Isabella, and Thomas met in the palace's secure communications room, where they could speak without fear of surveillance. The weight of their decision hung heavy in the air. They were about to accuse the Queen Mother of treason, fraud, and conspiracy against the royal family. I've arranged for Dr. Webb to conduct an independent medical evaluation of Marcus this afternoon, Thomas reported. If we can prove he's being held and medicated against his will, we'll have evidence of kidnapping and false imprisonment. Catherine nodded, her emerald eyes steely with determination. And I've requested an emergency meeting with King Edmund for 11 o'clock. I'm invoking the ancient right of petition, which means he has to see me privately without Camilla present.
Isabella looked nervous. Catherine, if this goes wrong, we'll all be exiled or worse.
Are you certain we have enough evidence? Catherine spread the documents across the table. Photographs, bank records, recorded conversations, witness testimonies, and financial transactions that painted a damning picture of Camilla's activities over the past 5 years. Look at this pattern, Catherine said, pointing to a timeline she had created. Every major decision that has weakened the monarchy's progressive initiatives can be traced back to Camilla's influence. The environmental programs that were cut, the charitable foundations that lost funding, the scandals that conveniently removed anyone who challenged the old guard's control. She pulled out a thick folder. Sophie's recordings prove that Camilla has been systematically manipulating public opinion through fake social media campaigns. She's been working with foreign interests to undermine British environmental policies while profiting from the very industries we're supposed to be regulating. Thomas added his own evidence to the pile, and the financial records show at least £40 million diverted from royal charities into offshore accounts controlled by companies linked to Richard's business interests. This isn't just about succession, it's about looting the monarchy to fund their own empire. The scope of the conspiracy was breathtaking. Camilla had turned the royal family's charitable work into a personal slush fund, while systematically destroying anyone who might expose her activities. At precisely 11 o'clock, Catherine knocked on the door of King Edmund's private study. The 82-year-old monarch looked frailer than she remembered, his once commanding presence diminished by age and the weight of decades on the throne. But his blue eyes were still sharp, and Catherine could see the intelligence that had guided the kingdom through numerous crises. Catherine, he said warmly, rising to embrace her. My dear, it's good to have you home. I know these past years have been difficult. Your Majesty, Catherine replied formally, despite their familial relationship. Thank you for agreeing to see me. What I have to share requires the utmost discretion. Quote, King Edmund's expression grew serious as he gestured for her to sit in the chair across from his desk. Catherine had prepared for this moment for 3 years, but now that it was here, the magnitude of what she was about to reveal felt overwhelming. Uncle, she began, using the informal address that signified the personal nature of what she was about to share, I need to tell you something that will be difficult to hear. Someone very close to you has been systematically betraying the crown. For the next hour, Catherine methodically presented her evidence. She watched King Edmund's face cycle through disbelief, confusion, anger, and finally, a deep sadness that seemed to age him further with each revelation. These financial records, he said quietly, studying the documents that showed money being diverted from his beloved children's charities. Are you certain they're authentic? I've had them verified by 3 independent forensic accountants, Catherine replied. The pattern is consistent across every charity where Camilla has advisory influence. King Edmund was quiet for a long moment, staring at photographs that showed his wife in clandestine meetings with individuals he didn't recognize. The night Marcus was photographed, Catherine continued gently, he wasn't there to gamble. He was being blackmailed to protect his friend, and the facility where he's being treated, Your Majesty, he's not receiving treatment for addiction. He's being kept sedated and isolated to prevent him from revealing what he knows. The king's hands trembled as he set down the photographs. My grandson. You're saying my wife has been holding him prisoner? Dr. Webb is examining him as we speak, Catherine confirmed, but the medical records show a pattern of sedation that's consistent with containment rather than treatment. King Edmund stood and walked to the window, his shoulders bent under the weight of the revelations. When he turned back, there were tears in his eyes. Catherine, if this is true, if even half of this is true, it means I've been a fool. It means I've allowed someone to destroy my family from within, while I trusted blindly. Catherine approached him carefully. You trusted someone you loved. That's not foolish. It's human. But now that we know the truth, we have to act. What do you propose? He asked, his voice heavy with resignation and resolve. We need to secure Marcus first. Then we need to confront Camilla with the evidence and give her a chance to confess. If she refuses, we'll have to present this to Parliament and let them decide how to proceed. King Edmund nodded slowly. And if this becomes public? It will damage the monarchy in the short term, Catherine admitted. But if we handle it correctly, it could also be seen as the crown taking responsibility for cleaning its own house. We can frame it as a victory for transparency and justice. That afternoon brought the moment Catherine had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Dr. Webb's examination of Prince Marcus confirmed their worst fears. The 25-year-old prince had been kept in a medicated haze for nearly 2 years, treated for an addiction he didn't have, while being told that his family had abandoned him due to his shameful behavior. He's completely lucid when not medicated, Dr. Webb reported privately to Catherine and King Edmund. He remembers everything clearly, including being coerced into going to the gambling establishment. He's been asking to see his family for months, but he was told that you had all requested no contact until he completed his treatment. King Edmund's rage was controlled but palpable. Where is he now? I've transferred him to a secure wing of St. Margaret's Hospital under my personal care, Dr. Webb replied. He'll need time to fully clear the medications from his system, but he should be ready to give a statement within 24 hours. That evening, Catherine prepared for the most dangerous conversation of her life. She had requested a private dinner with Camilla, ostensibly to clear the air between them before the state dinner. Camilla had agreed, perhaps thinking it was an opportunity to assess Catherine's mental state before proceeding with her plan to discredit her. They met in Camilla's private dining room, an elegant space decorated in soft golds and creams that reflected her carefully cultivated image as a gracious royal matriarch. Camilla had dressed for the occasion in a deep purple gown that emphasized her regal bearing, her silver hair styled in an elaborate updo that added to her imposing presence. Catherine, darling, Camilla said as they sat down to dinner, you look wonderfully refreshed. Your time away has obviously been beneficial. Catherine smiled politely, noting how Camilla's eyes never quite met hers directly. It has been educational. I've learned so much about myself and about other things. Oh, how fascinating. I do hope you're feeling emotionally stable as we approach tomorrow's dinner. Such an important event requires everyone to be at their absolute best. The comment was clearly designed to plant seeds about Catherine's mental state, but Catherine refused to take the bait. I feel clearer than I have in years, Catherine replied evenly. In fact, I've been doing quite a bit of research lately, financial research primarily. For the first time, Camilla's composure flickered slightly. How industrious of you. Catherine reached into her purse and withdrew a single photograph, the image Thomas had preserved of Camilla meeting with the tabloid editor Marcus Rothwell. She placed it on the table between them like a chess piece being moved into position. I found this particularly interesting, Catherine said, watching as Camilla's face went pale, especially when I compared the timestamp to when the scandal about me broke. Camilla stared at the photograph for a long moment before looking up with an expression that was no longer grandmotherly or warm. The mask had finally slipped, revealing the calculating intelligence beneath. I don't know what you think you're implying, Camilla said carefully, but I hope you're not planning to make accusations based on a single photograph that could have been taken out of context. Catherine smiled and withdrew more photographs, spreading them across the table like cards in a deadly game. Images of Camilla with business leaders whose companies had received favorable treatment after environmental regulations were mysteriously relaxed. Pictures of secret meetings with politicians who had voted against initiatives supported by other royal family members, evidence of a conspiracy that went far deeper than personal ambition. Context, Catherine repeated thoughtfully. Yes, context is everything, isn't it? Like the context of £40 million diverted from children's charities, or the context of Marcus being held against his will in a medical facility, or the context of systematic character assassination of anyone who threatened your plans. Camilla's facade cracked completely, replaced by cold fury. You stupid, naive girl. Do you have any idea what you're playing with? I saved this monarchy from itself. I brought stability and proper values back to the crown. By destroying innocent people? Catherine asked, her own anger finally breaking through her controlled exterior. By stealing from charities? By drugging and imprisoning your own stepson? By doing what was necessary, Camilla snapped. Edmund is weak, too concerned with public opinion and progressive nonsense. The monarchy was becoming a laughingstock under his guidance. I brought discipline back. I restored respect. Catherine leaned forward, her emerald eyes blazing. You brought corruption. You turned the crown into your personal criminal enterprise. Camilla laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. And what exactly do you think you can do about it? Who's going to believe you? The unstable princess who disappeared in scandal? The girl who couldn't handle the pressure of royal life? King Edmund believes me, Catherine said quietly. And tomorrow night, at the state dinner, the world will know the truth. For the first time, genuine fear flickered across Camilla's features. Edmund would never. He loves me. He trusts me. Catherine stood up, leaving the evidence scattered across the table. He loved you. Past tense. When someone betrays that love as completely as you have, even the most trusting heart has its limits. As Catherine walked toward the door, Camilla called after her. If you do this, you'll destroy the monarchy. The scandal will bring down the entire royal family. Catherine turned back one last time. The monarchy survived wars, revolutions, and countless scandals because it eventually found the strength to renew itself. It will survive you too. As she left Camilla's chambers, Catherine felt the weight of destiny settling around her shoulders. Tomorrow night would determine not just her own future, but the future of the crown itself. The game was almost over, and Catherine intended to win. The morning of the state dinner dawned grey and ominous, as if the weather itself sensed the momentous events about to unfold at Raven's Hollow Palace. Catherine woke before sunrise, her mind crystal clear despite the magnitude of what lay ahead. Today would either see justice served or witness the complete destruction of everything she held dear. At 7 a.m, Prince Marcus arrived at the palace for the first time in 2 years. Dr. Webb had worked through the night to ensure the medications were completely cleared from his system, and the young man who walked through the palace gates bore little resemblance to the broken figure who had been carried away in scandal. At 25, Marcus had always been the most intellectually gifted of King Edmund's grandchildren, and his fury at what had been done to him burned with controlled intensity. "Catherine," he said, embracing his cousin with tears in his eyes, "thank you for not giving up on me. They told me you all believed I was an addict, that you were ashamed of me." "Never," Catherine replied firmly. "We knew something was wrong, but we couldn't prove it until now. Are you ready for what comes next?" Marcus nodded grimly. "I've been ready for 2 years. I have so much to tell you about what I overheard during those lucid moments. Things Camilla discussed when she thought I was too sedated to understand." They met with King Edmund in his private study, where the elderly monarch looked as though he had aged a decade overnight. The evidence of his wife's betrayal had shattered something fundamental in him, but it had also awakened a steely determination that reminded Catherine why he had been such a respected leader for so many decades. "Marcus, my boy," the king said, his voice breaking as he embraced his grandson. "I'm so sorry. I should have questioned, should have investigated. You trusted someone you loved," Marcus replied, echoing Catherine's words from the previous day. "The fault lies with her, not with you." Over the next hour, Marcus revealed details that made even their extensive evidence seem incomplete. During his forced treatment, he had been present when Camilla held meetings with foreign business interests, selling access to royal influence in exchange for payments to offshore accounts. He had listened as she planned the systematic removal of family members who might challenge her son Richard's eventual claim to influence over the throne. "She was planning something for tonight," Marcus said urgently. "I heard her on the phone with someone discussing a final solution to the Catherine problem. Something about making sure you had a very public breakdown during the dinner with the French delegation." Catherine's blood ran cold as she realized how close she had come to walking into Camilla's trap. If they hadn't moved first, she would have been drugged or manipulated into a situation that would have destroyed her credibility forever. "What exactly did you hear?" King Edmund asked, his hands clenched with suppressed rage. She arranged for something to be put in Catherine's wine during the dinner, something that would make her appear intoxicated or unstable. Then she had photographers positioned to capture the resulting scene. It would have looked like Catherine couldn't handle the pressure of returning to public life. The diabolical nature of the plan was breathtaking. Camilla had intended to destroy Catherine's reputation in front of international dignitaries ensuring that any accusations Catherine might make afterward would be dismissed as the ravings of someone who had clearly suffered a mental breakdown. Thomas appeared at the study door with an urgent expression. "Your Majesty, we have a problem. Camilla has requested an emergency meeting with the French ambassador. She claims there are concerns about Catherine's fitness to participate in tonight's dinner." Catherine stood abruptly. She's accelerating her timeline. "If she convinces the French that I'm unstable before we can expose her, it will lend credibility to whatever scene she plans to create tonight." King Edmund's jaw tightened with resolve. "Then we move now, Thomas. I want you to quietly inform the head of palace security about what we've discovered. Tell them I want Camilla's movements monitored and her communications intercepted." "Catherine, are you prepared to present our evidence to the French delegation?" Catherine nodded, feeling the weight of history settling around her. "I've prepared a comprehensive presentation, but we need to be strategic about how we reveal this." "We can't just accuse the Queen Mother of treason without giving her a chance to respond." "She had a chance last night," King Edmund replied coldly. "She chose to continue with her plans rather than confess. Now we do what's best for the crown." The next few hours passed in a whirlwind of activity. Isabella arrived from her rushed flight from Madagascar, bringing additional evidence she had gathered during her diplomatic missions. Webb prepared a detailed medical report on Marcus's treatment that would serve as evidence of false imprisonment. Sophie Chen provided sworn testimony about her role in Camilla's social media manipulation campaigns. At 2 in the afternoon, King Edmund made a decision that would change everything. He called an emergency meeting of the Privy Council, the body of senior advisors who could be called upon to deal with matters affecting the crown itself. For the first time in over a century, a reigning monarch was about to accuse his own wife of treason. The Privy Council chamber was a wood-panelled room filled with portraits of monarchs dating back centuries, where decisions had been made that shaped the course of nations. As the 12 senior councillors filed in, Catherine could feel the weight of history pressing down on them all. King Edmund stood at the head of the ancient oak table, his bearing regal despite the personal anguish evident in his eyes. "Gentlemen, ladies," he began formally, "I have called this emergency session to address matters of the highest importance to the crown and the realm." For the next 2 hours, Catherine, Isabella, Marcus, and their allies presented evidence that painted a devastating picture of corruption at the very heart of the monarchy. Bank records, photographs, recorded conversations, and medical testimony created an irrefutable case that Queen Mother Camilla had systematically betrayed her oath to serve the crown. The council members listened in stunned silence as the scope of the conspiracy was revealed. Financial fraud, character assassination, false imprisonment, and treason against the royal family itself. When Catherine finished her presentation, the room was so quiet that the ticking of the ancient grandfather clock sounded like thunder. Lord Chancellor Harrison, the most senior member of the council, was the first to speak. "Your Majesty, if even half of this evidence is authentic, we are dealing with the most serious threat to the monarchy in centuries." "All of it has been verified," King Edmund replied heavily. "I've seen the original documents, heard the recordings, and spoken with the victims personally." "What do you propose we do?" asked the Archbishop of Canterbury, his voice grave with the implications. "Justice," King Edmund said simply. "The same justice that would apply to any citizen who committed these crimes." At 4 o'clock, as the Privy Council continued their deliberations, Camilla made her move. She arrived at the French ambassador's residence for their private meeting, unaware that palace security was monitoring her every movement. What she didn't know was that King Edmund had already contacted the ambassador personally, providing a briefing on the situation that would unfold. Ambassador Laurent Dubois was a seasoned diplomat who had witnessed political upheavals across Europe, but even he was unprepared for what Camilla revealed during their meeting. In her desperation to control the narrative, Camilla overplayed her hand, making accusations against Catherine that were so outrageous they immediately raised suspicions about her own motives. "Princess Catherine has been unstable for years," Camilla told the ambassador, unaware that their conversation was being recorded. "She's obsessed with conspiracy theories, making wild accusations against family members. I fear she may have a complete breakdown during tonight's dinner." What Camilla didn't realize was that her own behavior during the meeting, the nervous gestures, the inconsistent story, the obvious desperation, conveyed exactly the opposite message. Ambassador Dubois, trained to read people in situations, quickly concluded that whatever was happening at the palace, Camilla herself was the source of instability. At 6 o'clock, 2 hours before the state dinner was scheduled to begin, King Edmund made his final decision. The Privy Council had voted unanimously to recommend that charges be filed against Queen Mother Camilla for fraud, conspiracy, and treason against the crown. But before any legal proceedings could begin, Edmund wanted to give his wife one last chance to confess and potentially negotiate a resolution that would minimize damage to the monarchy. The confrontation took place in the same private study where Catherine had presented her evidence that morning. Camilla entered expecting to find her husband alone, ready to discuss concerns about Catherine's behavior. Instead, she found Edmund flanked by the Lord Chancellor, the head of palace security, and Catherine herself. "Camilla," Edmund said quietly, "we need to discuss your activities over the past 5 years." For a moment, Camilla's composure held. "I don't know what you mean, darling. Has Catherine been filling your head with more of her paranoid fantasies?" Edmund placed the evidence on his desk. Photographs, financial records, and transcripts of recorded conversations. "These aren't fantasies. They're facts, verified by independent sources and confirmed by multiple witnesses." Camilla's face went through a range of emotions as she realized the scope of what they knew. Denial gave way to anger, then to desperation, and finally to a cold calculation that revealed the person she had truly been all along. "So what?" she said finally, her voice stripped of all pretense. "So what if I did everything you think I did? Do you know what this monarchy was before I brought discipline to it? A joke. A relic stumbling toward irrelevance while you worried about public opinion and progressive nonsense." "You destroyed innocent people," Catherine said, her voice steady despite her anger. "You stole from children's charities. You drugged and imprisoned Marcus." Camilla laughed bitterly. "I did what was necessary to preserve the crown for future generations. Richard will make a far better leader than any of Edmund's weak-willed grandchildren." The confession was complete and damning. King Edmund looked at his wife with an expression of profound sadness mixed with disgust. "Camilla Elizabeth Mountbatten," he said formally, using her full name and title. "By the authority vested in me as sovereign, and with the unanimous recommendation of the Privy Council, I hereby strip you of all royal titles and privileges. You will be taken into custody pending formal charges of high treason, fraud, and conspiracy against the crown." Palace security moved forward, but Camilla held up her hand with regal authority that she no longer possessed. "You'll regret this," she said coldly, looking directly at Catherine. "When this becomes public, it will destroy everything. The monarchy won't survive the scandal." Catherine stepped forward, meeting Camilla's gaze without flinching. "The monarchy has survived much worse than you. It will survive because we had the courage to clean house when cleaning was needed." As Camilla was escorted from the palace, Catherine felt a complex mix of emotions. Victory, certainly, but also sadness for the pain this would cause King Edmund, and concern about the challenges that lay ahead. The state dinner proceeded that evening, but with a completely different atmosphere than anyone had anticipated. Instead of Camilla's planned destruction of Catherine's reputation, the evening became Catherine's triumphant return to public life. King Edmund announced that evening that Catherine would be taking on expanded duties as senior working royal, and that the monarchy was entering a new era of transparency and accountability. Ambassador Dubois, briefed on the day's events, expressed France's support for the Crown's decisive action in addressing internal corruption. The international community, rather than seeing scandal, witnessed a monarchy strong enough to police itself and remove those who betrayed its values. 3 months later, Catherine stood on the balcony of Ravenshollow Palace, watching the sunrise paint the ancient stones in shades of gold and rose. Camilla had been convicted on all charges and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Prince Marcus had made a full recovery and was now leading anti-corruption initiatives across the Commonwealth. Princess Isabella had returned to court with expanded authority over environmental policy. The monarchy had not only survived the scandal, but had emerged stronger, with public approval ratings reaching heights not seen in decades. The British people had responded positively to the Crown's willingness to confront corruption within its own ranks, seeing it as evidence of institutional strength rather than weakness. Thomas appeared beside her on the balcony, now officially appointed as Catherine's head of security and private secretary. "The morning papers are calling it the Royal Renaissance," he reported with a slight smile. "Editorials praising the Crown's commitment to justice and transparency." Catherine nodded, but her expression remained thoughtful. "We've won this battle, but the work is just beginning. We need to rebuild trust, strengthen our institutions, and make sure something like this can never happen again." "And your own future?" Thomas asked. "The succession question has been resolved in your favor. You're now directly in line after Crown Prince William." Catherine smiled for the first time in what felt like years. "My future is serving the Crown and the people, just as it always has been. But now I can do it without looking over my shoulder, without wondering who might be plotting my downfall." As the sun rose fully over London, Catherine felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced since before the scandal that had driven her from public life. Justice had been served, truth had prevailed, and the monarchy stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The game was over, and Catherine had not merely won, she had transformed the very rules by which the game was played. The future of the crown was secure, built on a foundation of transparency, accountability, and the unwavering principle that no one, regardless of their position, was above justice. In the end, her greatest revenge against those who had tried to destroy her was not vengeance at all, but the restoration of everything they had sought to corrupt. The crown would endure, stronger and more honorable than ever before.